Welcome to Semper Sometimes with Benny. This is going to be like my second or third interview over YouTube. So just enjoy it. I'm trying to get over there. The reason why I ended up going on YouTube is I went to an event yesterday, and everybody there was coming up to my table and they were just like, "Are you on YouTube?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "You need to be on YouTube." And I was like, "Okay." And they were like, I don't know if you ever heard of Irreverent Warriors, but
Yeah.
So they started off like doing silky hikes and stuff like that, just as like a joke. This lieutenant colonel, I think it is, got out of the Marine Corps and then was like he missed the camaraderie, so he started doing it. And he came up to my table, was talking to me, and he was just like, "Yeah, man, if you're not on YouTube, then you need to get on YouTube, because what people do is they download it and then they just listen to it or they watch the video." So he was like, "You can get both the podcast and the video." So I was like, "Oh, word." So but that's neither here nor there. So I wanted to have Stan back with us, just because number one, we didn't do a video the first time, so now he can be on the video, and you guys can see his beautiful mug. But then also it's because our conversation is my number one listened to, and I think
it really?
Oh yeah, it's got like it's got like 300 views, and I also think it's the most controversial, because I have gotten phone calls from some people that will be remained nameless. But before we get into anything, I'm going to say it again. This is in no way, shape, or form a bash at any kind of 8412 or military recruiter. This is not anything at all. All it simply is two dudes talking about their time on Marine Corps recruiting duty and ways that we feel could help people. And the reason why I say this is because I'm still in the Marine Corps. I know you're transitioning out of the Marine Corps. So we're not at all trying to get into anybody's skin or under anybody's skin. Just take it as, so we're just trying to give back. And I say that because since I've started this podcast, I had a Marine today reach out to me. He liked my status on the Marine Corps website I commented on, and he messaged me and he was like, "Hey man, I want you to know I've been listening to every one of your recruiting episodes." And he was like, "3 months ago I was about to quit, and you've given me a completely different attitude, and now I'm killing it." So that's what I'm trying to do, is because a lot of people come out on the duty with a piss poor attitude, and it's because their higher leaders decided to tell them, "Hey, you're going to have a shitty time." So immediately they have the idea, "I'm going to have a shitty time." So what I kind of wanted to talk to you about, Stan, was just, how you found yourself to be a successful staff NCO. So when you were a recruiter, then you became a staff NCO, staff NCO SC. What was it that helped you have a strong team, and what made those Marines follow you and actually work for you? And what was it that kept you guys so close?
Just genuine care, right? So there was no alienation. There was no issues where, somebody was performing, everybody's just going to push them to the side and, perform harder and work themselves harder, when in reality, whether it's a bad day, bad week, bad month, or it's just a bad recruiter, how much more time are you going to waste trying to go around that recruiter rather than picking him up or her up, teaching them, carrying them with you for a bit, and then putting them on the walk with you? Is all, last time we talked, first off, I didn't know it was controversial. You definitely haven't told me that yet. Different side note for different time. But when, when we got a recruiter, and I had two of them that were, they're difficult to train, but at the worst points of our teammates, like, being able to depend on each other, was when we were putting those recruiters down. I started to notice real quickly that as we created some type of negativity, it almost snowballed and would allow our days to turn into weeks, to turn into negative months. Now, it didn't matter if we were winning or losing, just the overall attitude or morale of the office would be negative if we were consistently putting someone down for not being successful. So instead of pushing them aside and, talking trash, looking back at them, we decided that one day we were just going to put everybody on each other's backs and walk together. And if somebody needs to be carried, then, somebody needs to be carried. And as men, because it was a group of just all guys when I was there, as men, we held each other accountable to a level of which was expected but we also had that family care and genuine attitude towards each other that allowed that open forum so that people didn't start to hold grudges because they felt like somebody's being hypocritical or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So genuine feedback through genuine attitude, that brought results. It brought family. And when we created that family, not trying to play Fast and the Furious type stuff here about saying family so many times, but when we created that family, things just started rolling. And when they started rolling, it was good.
And that's what it is, man, is that a lot of these people that I'm talking to, or a lot of the offices that I've seen, and again, mind you, I only know New Jersey because I've only been in New Jersey. So I can't say this is Marine Corps wide. I can't say it's district wide. I only know the offices in which that I was in New Jersey. But I can say that the offices that were killing it were because they were families. Like I had one of my other episodes, 2 episodes ago, I had Gunnery Sergeant Mabry on, and that's exactly what he talked about. He was like, "Hey man," he literally was like, "Bro, I took care of my family." He was like, "Dude, there was a guy, one of the guys in his office was working so hard to get this kid on deck that he forgot that it was his daughter's birthday. So Gunny Mabry went out, got the cake, set up a whole party for the kid, and then the Marine came home to literally Gunny Mabry and celebrating his daughter's birthday just because he got so worked up into stuff. But he was like, bro, I got to make sure my Marines know, not even just because I need them to work for me, but just because that's who I am. And right. I think that's a huge part of the whole thing is, like you're saying, is the accountability piece. It's like Marines come out on this duty and all of a sudden they forget about peer-to-peer leadership. They forget about accountability. They forget about all these different things. And it's like, if you're not holding each other as an office accountable, and again, we're all going to have different, things. So like where you're talking about not putting people down, I definitely get that. And I agree with it. My way though, what I would do, like when I was a recruiter, completely different from me as staff in CSC. But when I was a recruiter, like if you weren't doing anything to help the office, I literally would come up to you and I'd be like, bro, what are you doing? Like, what are you not doing? And I'd be like, because, and I say this because in the fleet, before, when you're talking about peer-to-peer leadership, before like the sergeants, they're going to deal with it before it gets to that staff sergeant gunny level. For some reason on recruiting duty, people forget about that. So the reality of it is it should be the same way. These core recruiters should fix their problem before it gets to the A gunner, before it gets to the staff in CIC. Because the staff in CIC, and I learned this from Master Diaz, like when I was growing up on recruiting duty, when he was the staff in CIC of Monmouth, I never heard him go ask somebody, hey, what do you got for tomorrow? He never did, because you were going to come and tell him what you had for tomorrow, or the A gunner already knew what it was. And he was doing his job as a staff in CIC. The A gunner was doing his job as an A gunner, and then those recruiters. So everybody had that accountability and that peer-to-peer leadership. But I think that's a huge thing that's been missed and lost, is that Marines just don't hold themselves accountable on the duty, and that you allow this sergeant, like, because I say it all the time, bro. Like, I think it's insane that and mind you, I thought this was just like a Jersey problem, but then I started doing this podcast and I started hearing about it everywhere. And dude, there's people going 9 months to a year without writing one contract. And I'm like, how? Like, how is that even physically possible, bro? Like, how is that? Like, in my opinion, you've literally just got to not even be trying. Like, you've got to literally just, like, bro, I could walk to work, and inside the span of walking to work, I could have someone walk in the office and end up being an appointment. Like, for you to have, like, no contracts in a year, it's like, are you just trying to sabotage yourself?
My idea of, like, taking care of each other ditches about, like, 6 months, right? So if we're going into a year, I mean, there's a different attitude to face with that 100%.
Well, and that's the thing too, though, is that, like, again, I think we may have talked about this before, but it's just the idea that there are Marines out there who've gone 6-7 months, right? But why are they still on the duty? Why are they still here? And then you ask that question, and then someone's like, well, somebody dropped the ball, man. They didn't fill out the training card right. And, we can't really get him out because you didn't do the proper paperwork. So it's like, hey, listen, just so all of you know, and this is not and I want to say this the correct way, because I had a Marine. I you know what? I'll actually tell the story because it'll help somebody as a staff at CSC, right? So make sure make sure that when you do the training that you're supposed to do with your Marines, that when you sit down with them, you explain to them what's going on. You explain to them, hey, this is the training that we're going to go over. This is what it's supposed to do, and explain to them the purpose behind it, right? Because there's Marines out there who feel like when you start bringing training into the picture, that you're only trying to fuck them over. And I say that
because you want to prove something.
I say that because I had that happen. I sat down, and mind you, I did training all the time with this Marine. And one day I pulled out an IOF, an interview observation form, and I sat down at his desk, and he hung up the phone. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't an observation form. It was the telephone call form where you fill it out and make sure that he's doing the steps and stuff. The call for fire. So I had it out, and he hung up the phone. I was like, why'd you do that? Literally, and the person just answered. He hung up the phone, and he was like, "Why?" He's like, "What's that?" I was like, "Well, hey man," I was like, "I'm gonna do some work with you," and I explained it to him. But I was explaining it to him after the fact. I fucked up. I should have explained it to him. I should have waited till that phone call was done, and then I should have explained to him, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do." So then he immediately looks at me and he goes, "I'm not doing that." I was like, "Well, first of all, you can't tell me when you're gonna get trained." I was like, "That's not how this works." But then we went outside for a cigarette. We started talking, and he was like, the only time in my whole entire career where somebody's ever pulled out a pen and paper and sat down with me was when I was about to get fucked over. He was like, because now you're trying to get a paper trail on me, And he was like, bro, I'm not about that. And then I explained to him the purpose behind it. And now, mind you, I was wrong because of the way I went at it. But the reason why I bring this up is because you have to explain to people that you're coming from a place of love, and you're coming from a place of like, bro, I need to help you. Like, you're not doing good. As great as you think you are, you're not. And you're not bringing the contracts, you're not bringing the appointments. There's something wrong, and I can't deduce the situation if I don't actually write it down and understand what's going on. And the reason why I just bring that up is because that's the problem, is that there's these Marines who go 6, 7, 9 months without writing contracts. But if you were to ever really sit down with that Marine and ask him, hey man, when was the last time you actually sat down with somebody for hours on end and got legitimate training? Or if you were to ask them, hey man, when was the last time somebody from outside of this office came and worked with you for a couple of days or a week or however long? A lot of times the answer is, oh, that never happened. And that's why you have these, and then you have these new joins who come into the unit and they're like, wait a minute, that guy works 7 days a week and he sucks ass. This guy works 7 days a week and he's great.
What's the difference?
And
they're not going to kick me off. So 36 months.
Exactly. And then they're going to throw that word out there. Hey, bro, you're going to get RFC. Hey, bro, you're going to get RFC. No, I'm not. Because he didn't. Bro, I just literally witnessed, and I'm never again, not going to say names, but I still know people who are out on the duty. And I literally just found out that they made, so this dude, when I was a staff in COIC, brand new staff in COIC, at the time, this dude was trash. Mind you, he had a lot of things going on with family. He had a surgery. He had a lot of things going on in life. Great dude, great person. The guy as a man was a good guy, right? As I got to know him and stuff, but he just didn't care about recruiting duty, was writing zeros, didn't care about training, didn't care about appointments, just like no matter what you did. And he would come at you and I would have arguments with this dude all the time. So forward like 4 months into me being there, the CO, the RI at the time, are talking about RFCing this dude and getting him out of the Marine Corps because of how belligerent he was, because of just how he acted, right? Then they were trying to get him for malingering because of the soldier.
Right.
So now, this is like 2 years ago, I get off recruiting duty and I hear from a friend of mine that this dude's now a staff in COIC.
I knew that was where it was going.
And I was like, wait, when I heard that, I was just like, bro, again, it's nothing against the guy. But when your command is looking at you, and your sergeants and your staff sergeants and your gunnies are looking at you, and they see you and they're like, wait a minute, you just put somebody in charge of an office that, one, his APR was trash, two, he literally cursed people out left and right, and he wrote no contracts, and that office had to take care of him. And on top of that, you were trying to kick him out of the Marine Corps for malingering and or adminsep or RFC. You were trying to get him out no matter what. And now all of a sudden you look at this guy and say, I have full trust and confidence in you that you can lead an office of mine. Like, wait, what? Yeah. And now your Marines are looking at you like, bro, like, what are we doing here?
Especially if he's promoted from within, like the same office.
Exactly, but he wasn't. They moved him to another office. But still, you don't think people talk? And not only that, it's like you said, bro, you can simply go into McChrist, look up somebody's APR and be like, bro. Now, mind you, I have to say this. So that brings me to a point. So remember how I said that the last episode was kind of controversial?
Yeah.
So without naming names, somebody reached out to me and they said that one of the things that we have to keep in mind, and I understand where he's coming from, and I respect him highly, this person, that when somebody's pulled to be a staff in COIC, his APR may not match what's been going on. Meaning, maybe the month before that, he dropped a whole bunch of dep and holds. Maybe before that, he contracted a whole, maybe he, what do you call it? When they fizz, but they don't dep, Q and need, Yep. So there's a lot of things that we don't know. So I understand where this person's coming from 100%. I think more so where you were going with that was just like where I'm going with it. Bro, there's a lot of people who become 8412s who really aren't that great at sales and who really aren't that great at MC3 or MC4. And it's like, that's why it's very strange. And here's a topic of discussion that, again, might be, political or people might get mad at. I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, you used to have to be a staff in COIC for 1 year before you could become an 8412.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
They changed that.
Yeah, now, 1 year stats. Same thing for promotion.
No, now you only have to be a staff NCO for 6 months and you can become a 8412.
You're not even evaluated at that point.
Exactly. So that's my question. How can you, first of all, you haven't even hit a 9-month cycle. So that literally means that you can come, and now mind you, again, if there's a misunderstanding here, I would love for someone to tell me, because this is my understanding that I've been explained, is that you can literally come right off of BRC because you're a staff or a gunny, get put into a staff and COIC seat, and then literally 6 months later get submitted for 8412 package.
That's absolutely.
And that's the thing, is because you got a lot of people out there who, and again, it's a sucky thing because there's a lot of people who are phenomenal 8412s, and it's like any other MOS. I'm not knocking the 8412 community, and the 8412 community knows this because I've literally sat there and I've had people tell me to my face, oh, this guy's a great guy, this guy's a great guy. And then that dude walks out of the room and then he's like, hey bro, that dude's a piece. Like, and it's like the own communities at each other like this. And the reason why I'm saying any of this is because that's how that happens, is you have some dude who maybe didn't want to go back to the fleet. Maybe there was other things going on in life. And now he's becoming a 12, not because he wants to become a 12, but because he can. Right. And then you have this dude who's supposed to be the subject matter expert, because the moment you put on that 8412 tag, no one knows, unless you literally are in that RSS, no sergeant who just got there knows that you're a brand new 8412. He's expecting you to know everything about recruiting duty because you are now an 8412. But the problem that you have is, and I'm not saying that I know everything, but there's a lot of people out there where you look at them and you're like, you were like, this is a real thing. Like, you're now being this person who's supposed to be able to go to an office, and that's what's expected of you as well, is you're expected to now go to this office and change it no matter what. It's not okay for you to miss mission, but are you really that capable at that time frame?
I don't know. I mean, I could talk about that all day, but I mean, honestly, it comes down to, if I'm put in that position, right? So let's try to make it I'll play both sides of it, especially because people are getting upset about things they're saying. I will say this though, more often than not, it's a non-successful situation, but what are the factors behind that, right? So we could blame it on a lot of different things. But when we look at somebody that went through that situation, you know, if you were to talk to someone who came out of the fleet, came on the duty, and let's just give them 6 months. They were on the back for 6 months, right? And they became a boss, or even 3 months. What are the true factors that you want to look at first to make sure that this Marine is actually capable? And I think that's the point that's being missed. I think it is very easy from a command view to think that they're capable, because the middleman that makes them seem capable does it through a system. Now, if you look at the command authority who puts a staff NCO in the seat, I mean, they know the Marine more than likely. They've sat with them, but how much time do they truly have with them to understand the capability of that Marine and their ability to set in the seat, right? So I don't think that it's much. I said it last time, and I'll retract the time frame. I don't think it depends on that. I think it really, for you to come into a job that you have no idea about and become an immediate leader, you have to be some different type of animal.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that are like that, right? There are people out there
like Gunny Mabry. Gunny 100%,
right,
unequivocally, I believe Gunny Mabry could have been a fucking phenomenal 8412. Same thing as Gunny Martinez. But the thing is that you had two phenomenal leaders who literally ended up calling themselves, I don't know if you know this, but they called themselves 8411.5s. And the reason was because all of the 12s, not all of them, there was an exception. Some of them didn't want them to be 12s, but the majority of them wanted them to be 12s. But and I'm not speaking for them, but the reason why a lot of people who would be phenomenal 12s don't want to be 12s is because of the 12s that we have interaction with. You know, and I'll tell a perfect story because it's a reality, right? So June of last year, I was a staff in COSC for about a year. I was 6 months into taking over Monmouth, and I get a random phone call from a Marine, and he's like, "Hey man, I need you to come down to headquarters. I want to talk to you." And I get down there, and mind you, I was with the gunnery sergeant. I'm not going to mention his name. And we drove down together because he was already in my office doing, like, coming by for a visit.
Right.
And what I did not know was that they were having all of the 8412s in the command in a room addressing me. This was not told to me. It was just, hey, come down to headquarters. We're going to talk to you. I thought it was just me and this person. So now I get in the car with this Gunny, and we're late because I'm telling him, like, hey, Gunny, the master sergeant said we got to be there by 12 o'clock. Hey, Gunny, the master sergeant said we got to be there by 12 o'clock. He's like, hey, man, I got it. You're with me. You're good. I'm like, I don't think that's how this is going to roll, but okay. So, of course, I walk in the building, and this other master sergeant starts flipping out, chewing my ass. Hey, staff sergeant, you were told by a goddamn master sergeant of Marines to be in this freaking headquarters. Why are you here, Larry? And I'm just sitting there like, this was going to happen. So then the Gunny walks in, doesn't even say anything like, hey, it's my fault. Just lets it happen. So I was like, all right, whatever, bro. So again, no skin off my back. Now I'm like, okay, why am I here? So I walk into the room, sit down, and there's 5 8412s in a circle, and I'm sitting down. And I don't know if this was supposed to be like some kind of AA meeting or some shit, but they literally start talking to me about where I'm lacking, what I'm not doing right, and they go one by one by one by one by one. One of them literally said straight out, "Oh, the guy who chewed me out." All he says, he's a brand new Marine. He'd been there 2 months. All he says to me is, he goes, "With what I just saw from you, I will never co-sign on your package to become an 8412." He gets up and walks out. Then, mind you, me and him now, we fuck with each other. But so that was that. He walks out. The next guy goes, and he tells me pretty much, and I know this, he says a whole bunch of stuff, and he's like, you ask too many people the same question. He was like, you need to make your own decision, and if you're gonna get guidance from somebody, don't get guidance from everybody. Because he's like, don't you think that we all talk? So he's like, we all find that. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that makes sense. So I understood that, and I took it, and I was like, all right, work. Then This other dude talks, and everybody literally, all I heard the whole time was just trash, 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 trash. Then the mass sergeant who brought up the conversation says to me, I think he was pretty much just like, hey, listen, man, I don't want you to think that we brought here to trash you. We just want you to know that these are all the issues that you're having, but you're doing a great job.
Huh. Was that balanced feedback? Is that what they're trying to attain?
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, what? Because now, mind
you, got in this whole tribal circle and got trashed.
Yeah,
but really, we just did it because we love you.
Yeah, I was just like, wait, what? Now, mind you, the guy who was sitting next to me, which is the guy who brought me there, he's sitting here, and he's the dude who's always in my ear and talking all this stuff about everybody else. And he's my boy, Maka. Again, he's my dude. But it's like, what is going on? Because now you're the guy who's always telling me, oh, you're doing great, you're doing great. So then why aren't you fighting my back right now? Like, why aren't you saying to all of these guys, hey, he did this, this, and this, and the third, right? You know what I mean? So whatever. So nothing happens. And they literally asked me, they're like, all right, well, do you have anything to say? And I just looked at them and I was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, because apparently whatever I say right now, y'all have already made your decision that you're not going to make me 8412. Every one of you is sat around this table right now and just told me you're not going to make me 8412. And no matter what I say, it doesn't mean shit. So I'm good. I was like, I'm good. So mind you, I get out the car, I get out the office, and I go sit in my car. And the gunny that I pulled up with had to do something. So I'm just sitting in my car for like 20, 30 minutes. And I'm waiting on him. And all of a sudden, I get a call from one of the dudes that was in the room. Mm-hmm. And I've known this guy for like 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, yo. I was like, what's up, man? He's like, yo. I was like, what's up, man? He's like, yo, I really want to apologize. I was like, for what? He's like, for not saying nothing, man. He goes, those Marines in that room, they really owe you. Because you got a lack of training, you got this going for you, and bro, like you're killing it, and they just bashed you for 30 minutes in there, and I was like, so why the fuck didn't you say anything?
Yeah,
literally that's what I said. I was like, why the fuck didn't you say something? And literally all he says is, bro, I'm about to retire. I'm not trying to freaking start no waves. He's like, but yo, just know that I got you. I was like, no, you don't.
You had your shot to get
me. Yeah, that was your time to back me up and be like,
I was waiting. I was sitting there like, yo, get me.
Yeah. So I was like, bro, like, I was like, dude, at that moment, I was like, all right, we're good to go. And now, mind you, the reason why I'm bringing all this up, though, is because that same dude who called me to tell me that was talking about the dude that was sitting right next to me. He's a piece of shit. If that dude ever called, if I saw that dude outside the street, I would freaking knock him the fuck out. And I'm just like,
no, you wouldn't.
But that's the thing, though, whether you would or you wouldn't, it's like people see that about, and this is, again, it's not an 8412 thing, it's a command thing. People see things and people don't realize that. Like, it's kind of like when parents, your kids see when you're bickering and when you're acting a fool in front of them. It's the same thing. So when a command of Marines or higher ups, whether it's staffs or even if it's Lance Corporals watching their sergeants, when you're acting in a way and you're a bullshit liar, people see that. They know that. So now when you come into their office to talk to them, to befriend them, to try to help them, immediately they're like, bro, you were just talking shit about that dude down the street yesterday. I know you were because I was the dude you were talking to. So why the hell am I going to confide in you when I know that anything I say to you is going to go to somebody else? And I know you're really not here because you have the best of me. And that's what I'm saying is like, and again, this isn't just a recruiting thing. This is a Marine Corps, Army. This is a life thing. This is a parenting thing. And that's the thing is people don't feel like you have their back because when you come into their office to talk to them, immediately they're like, oh shit, like, can I really tell you this? Is this really something I can tell you about? Or do you really? And that's the thing. So, and the reason why, again, I bring this up is just because like Gunny Mabry was talking about, he was like, bro, I'm Mabry. He was like, I'm the same way as a civilian that I am as a Marine. He's like, that's just who I am. And that's and that's one of the biggest problems with it all is just that, we as a Marine Corps, as people, as men, we say that we got people's back, but do we really?
So I read it. I'm going to touch back, and we're going to bring it to this. Let's bring that whole idea down to the office level, and I think that's where people get confused on how to interact within an office, right? So I know and saw so many times I was there, staff and CYCs that hated being treated exactly how you're talking about, right? Fortunately enough, I was successful pretty much the entire time I was there. I never had to deal with that, but I watched it plenty of times. So what they forget is the command to them is the same equivalency as them to their recruiters, right? So you're that, as a staff NCO, your next step up is that, either those ops chief positions or the ARI or the RI, those are the people you communicate, or the ops officer, right? So you communicate with them all the time. And those are people usually that when you communicate with them and you're not doing well, they're the first ones to either coordinate or, just step to the plate themselves and bash you. Well, the recruiters look at you as a staff NCOIC the same way as a staff NCOIC looks at the command. If you get bashed at the command, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go to all hands. You don't even want that person to come to your office and buy you lunch while they give you an eval or whatever. So what makes you think that if you emulate the ideas, the mannerisms, the ability to not lead very well, if you emulate all of that from the command level and bring that into your office, because that is the doctrine they've been indoctrinated into your mind, why would your recruiters ever want you to sit beside them with a pen and a pad? Why would your recruiters ever want you to say, hey, how's your family? Because you're doing that only in your convenient times, because that's all you've seen at the level above you. So going back way to the beginning when we started talking, the big thing that we didn't even discuss that we kind of just got over is why and how recruiters feel like no one has their back. And it's because when we look at what we're taught, right? KSSA, right? So knowledge, skills, attitude, blah, blah, blah. Before you touch any of that to try to figure out what's wrong with a recruiter, let's talk about human factors. The Marine Corps has this human factor thing that they follow. Well, I've been on two board committees since being out of recruiting. And both times it's just a check in the box. So why do we even do it? Well, you should really practice that on an everyday level without paper, Excel docs, whatever you got to do to prove yourself. Just try to figure out the ins and outs of that person, right? You're not going to buy something from Walmart that's just, or wherever, that's suspected to be this great thing to make you more efficient, whatever you bought it for, and not at least read the directions or watch a how-to video or anything. Knowing people are the same way. You can't get a person to come under you and start working and believe in you if you give them nothing to believe in except the fact that they need to believe in being silent, and they need to believe in being, invisible in a way, so they don't have to deal with you the same way you treat the command. So bosses, step one issue they do is they come back from the command and they trash talk what happens there. Then they do the same thing, and all the recruiters, they're sitting there like, dude, you're hypocritical so much, because you're doing the same stuff that you talk trash about. Not you specifically, but just a boss in general. I saw.
Well, no, I'm gonna be real with you. Everything that you're saying, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, I could see myself doing that. And that's the biggest thing, bro. Why, like, before you continue, anything that I'm saying, I'm not sitting here saying that I've never been at fault for doing any of these things. Same here. Like, anyone who's listening, like, I'm not sitting here saying that Benny or Bennett or whoever the fuck you want to call me was the end-all be-all best guy. And no, I'm not saying any of that. The problem is that we don't talk about this. Nobody sits down and says, hey, bro, you know what? You're fucked up. No one does. Well,
and not only that, dude, you got the tribal circle for talking to other people. Yeah. That's what I was going to get to. Like, why is it an issue that you ask people the same question? Are you mad because you didn't give me the right answer, so I had to go to the next person? No. I don't give a shit if you talk to 10 people and tell them I talk to you. Yeah. Because if those 10 people have a problem with it and I talk to them too, then they probably didn't cut the cheese with the information they were giving me, or I wouldn't have felt the need to go to another person. So who are you mad at? You should be mad at yourself, because instead of putting yourself in the doctrine that you're trying to speak, learning it, and then teaching it, you're trying to scam your way through checks in the box and get pissed off when somebody's talking to more people besides you. What?
Well,
you want a whole state to be good and no one's allowed to talk? That's fucking crazy.
So it's actually funny that you bring that up, right? So there was one time we were on a conference call, and the command was asking what are things that we could do to be better, because we were having a bad time and we were having an issue at MEPS, and everybody was fucking having this issue. They were having an issue with everybody across the state was having an issue with this. And what was happening is that you were turning in your missing docs and they were never getting updated. And then you were getting calls from the command like, hey, motherfucker, why aren't these things updated?
Yeah,
and
30-day ship. Where they
and then you're like, bro, I have copies that I left it there. I've brought that shit there 5 or 6 times. So finally, I just said it on a conference call. And I said, sir, I was like, something needs to be done because we're doing this. And you guys ask us every Friday, where's it at? And then I got to go to MEPS to open up the binder and find it. And I'm like, and it's not just me. It's now, mind you, when I said this, everybody fell silent. Nobody said anything. Then all of a sudden, the conference call's over and I get a call from one of the 8412s. And he's like, you fucking piece of shit. You're a fucking dirtbag. Why the fuck would you do that? Why the fuck would you throw MEPS under the bus? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, isn't that the purpose of the conference call? Aren't we literally sitting here talking about how we can get better? So then he was like, but then he was like, well, but have you brought it to the Marine? I'm like, yes, of course I have. We all have. Every one of us have. So then I was like, you know what? Before this gets out, it was like 9:30 at night. But I was like, before this gets out to this Marine, I'm gonna call him myself. So I called him. I was like, hey, Gunny. And I was already planning on it because that's the type of person I am. But I called him and I was like, hey, listen, Gunny, I'm letting you know that I made a statement about the fact that MEPS is effed up when it comes to missing docs. And I was like, I just said it because clearly nobody's tracking or the command isn't, because you guys will do this with you. And then all of a sudden this will happen. And the only reason why I'm bringing that up is because, like you said, is we have these conference calls and everyone's like, hey, someone needs to say something. And then you say something that everybody else is wanting to say, but now you're the bad guy. So it's like, why have the conference call?
Bro, I was the first person to click off mute. And I'll say this straight up. And I hope somebody calls you and tells you otherwise. It'd be a damn lie. But if somebody called me cussing me like that, the only words I would say is, you can look my office up on Google or you can figure out exactly where it's at. Won't you come tell me these things here in my face? Because I'm not going to entertain a phone call from you. You're not even calling the MEPS guy who clearly there's an issue with and calling that dude a piece of shit. You're going to call me and cuss me out, bro? No way. I'm too confrontational to listen to somebody run their suck over the phone. You come talk to me. And that's that. I'm going to take it back, right? That is the issue. That is the issue with what it was when I was out there and it was recruiting. Everybody pop off at the mouth, man. And I don't understand why people let them do that to them. You know, I never, ever would never let somebody talk to me that, you know. And when I first got out there, I had one incident with my boss at the time. He's out, Jeremy Curcio, love you to death. Bro, I was in a car waiting on an appointment, making phone calls off a list. And being the good little due diligent bag recruiter I was checking them off and writing the time. So when I got back, I put them in my Chris. Well, we had the little trackers on the car before the cameras, and he calls, or the XO calls him and say, hey, Sergeant Stanley's been sitting wherever, and as a launcher, I've just letting the car run for 2 hours now. Well, I was waiting on an appointment. The kid was running behind. It wasn't 2 hours, but my boss called me. He's like, hey, where you at? Where the hell you at? It was Curcio. And I was like, I'm here. You know, I told you, I briefed you what I'm doing. He's like, I don't give a shit. Get back to the office. So all the way back to the office, I'm like, this dude don't have any fucking idea how I grew up, where I came from, but he's about to find out. So I get in the office and he like kicked some paper box, and it was awkward because it was stupid, but he was like trying to yell at me. I'm like, yeah, go in, let's go in your office. And long story short, we came out of the office and we were friends. Never again, right? Because people lose track of their self-worth when they're embraced into a unit or a command that thrives off of running fear, right? So going back to the human factors thing, how do you expect anybody in the state to go to bat for the Marine Corps if their life is hell lived out of fear every single day about losing a career, losing their family, losing if they're just got their wife, or just losing their life in general, right? Every single day they're taught that if you don't do this, you lose everything. 36 months is a long time to thrive and survive. It is a long time to wake up every day not knowing if you're going to go to sleep that night, successful or not. And it's almost to the point that it's so opinionated, and it's only opinionated until the end of the month. So the difference in being a staffing COIC that is consistent and successful versus staffing COIC that's literally trying to survive at the command level, and then his Marines are trying to survive him or her. The difference in that is, what do you do at the end of the month without excuse pushing into the next month? So when it comes to talking to each other, right? I got to the point where I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't want anybody to know what's going on in my office. And as sad as that is, I was pushed to that point because of the unloyal leaders I had at the command. And let me tell you this story. First off, we don't have a crap ton of time because we weren't prepared with my phone. So I'll try to bunch the story in real quick, but there's a reason why I'm not on recruiting duty right now. Has nothing to do with how much I liked or didn't like it. Has nothing to do with anything but one leader. One leader. I had one leader and he's still in, not going to call him out. But let's just say he was pretty high up in the chain, call me, and I was killing it. We had just dropped, I think, over 5 DEP and holds at the end of the month to cover the state. It was, I think, May, and I was supposed to leave in September, but my package was prepped and ready to go. I just got word I was being meritoriously promoted. I was firing on all cylinders. This dude calls me and says, hey, I'm gonna need you to go take over another office. Well, in that time, I was also in the middle of a divorce. And I didn't know what the terms were with my kid, all of this stuff. All of these unknowns in my life, still killing it. And you're gonna call me and throw some other shit on my plate? I was respectful. I said, whatever I called him, hey, I can't do that. Here's what's going on in my life right now. The next question I got, how long is that gonna take? I don't know, motherfucker, you've been through a divorce before? I've never been there. I don't know how long it's gonna take. You know, I'm not from New Jersey. I'm just getting started with this. And then out of nowhere, I'm like, all right, maybe I need 6 months. If you give me 6 months here to fit everything up, I'll be ready. He goes, and this was in May. I know that for sure. He was like, all right, be ready August 1st. I said, that's not 6 months. And he was like, you don't have the ability to tell me what you want to do. Plus, I'm going to tell you what you are going to do for the future of this RS. I said, I don't think my 8412 package has been signed. He hung up on me. I get a call back from, if he was to have a right-hand man, I would have got a call back from that right-hand man who's not in anymore. He's like, hey man, I know this is kind of an awkward situation. I see why you're upset, trying to smooth it over. And I just told him, it was Sergeant Major Allen. It's like, y'all lost me, dude. Y'all lost me, because how am I supposed to go to work every day, live, breathe fire for the Marine Corps when the Marine Corps in this moment doesn't have my back? And that was the first time in my entire career they didn't have my back. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So then I started getting trashed, right? Because I got 3 months. Oh, this was all a facade so you could get promoted, blah, 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 blah. And at that point, I was just like, this was when the culture started changing, as you got there too. And I was just thinking to myself, why do people want to be here? So then I started talking to 212s and an ops officer who's not in it anymore. Come to find out, the same people who are pushing these fear antics, the only reason they're still sticking around is because they're scared to go back. And then also they're jumping office to office to office. You look at the most successful, especially when I was there. Let's talk about Mabry. I love Mabry. Brent Mabry is savage. Every boss meeting we went to, all hands, meet him side by side. And you know why? It's because he was a legit person. Also, would never let anybody talk to him the way they could talk to everybody else. And once we established that, nobody did it. So we established that on that command level. Hey, this shit's not going to fly. You're not going to talk to us this way. We're going to perform. You're going to respect performance. And if we have issues, talk to us like you should as a mentor for Marines. So then we take that same attitude, we can bring it back to the office. Well, if I don't let them people talk to me like that, if I feel a certain type of way, why would I talk to my Marines like that? Why would I even put them in the position to feel the same way that I felt so passionate about, that I almost want to freaking open hand slap somebody sitting at the boss table? You know what I mean? Like, then you become the hypocrite. You become the person that we talk about. So going back to the original, why do bosses not have the success rate that other bosses do? I'm a firm believer that anyone can be a student if they trust the teacher. I was a terrible high school student, right? Terrible. But some of the best classes that I performed in with best grades, I didn't even like the freaking class. I loved the teacher. The teacher made it fun. It was invigorating. They brought the content to me in a way that didn't feel like work. So then smooth transition into actually completing it. And I didn't ever understand why we would bitch about how we were being treated at the level above us, but then do the exact same thing. And then here's the kicker. Then they brag about it. They would come to the boss meetings and be like, I did this to my Marine, blah, 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 blah. But then 10 minutes later, they'd be like, as soon as the ARI walks out, they're like, man, these dudes, they should be able to talk to us like this. Like, bitch, you just said you do it to your Marines.
Yeah.
But I would say that in Mayberry too. We're like, bro, what have you been talking about? Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that people need to hear, I think you're spot on with training. I think you're spot on with most of the Marine Corps factors that play into recruiting. I think the missing piece that people fail to see is there is so much human factor that goes into making someone perform that if you do not practice that every ounce of the day, you will lose them. If you have trust issues, and every person that I ever put in the Marine Corps had issues, if you have trust issues as a Marine, it only takes once, man. It only takes one leader fucking me over before I'm like, that's it.
So it's the truth. Like you were saying, so when my package was supposed to be getting submitted, so I'm a reservist, right? So I only have so much time on active duty. So literally I had 1 week left on active duty. And this is my first extension. I have 1 week left on active duty. My package hasn't come back approved yet. And it's the end of the month and I'm fighting to make mission. It was February of 2020, sorry. February 2020. And I'm fighting to make mission. And literally I'm literally fucking fighting to make mission, right? And my CEO comes walking in the office and he's like, it's like 11 o'clock at night where I'm still at work. I'm freaking going at it. And he sits down, he pulls up this whiteboard, he starts drawing on it and talking on it and going into some history class. Like that's what he always did. And I look at him and he's like, Bennett, what's wrong? I'm like, sir, I might not have a job in a week. I was like, I have a house, a mortgage, a kid on the way. I was like, a week from now, I might literally not have a job. And
so what are we doing right now?
And I was like, and I'm still trying to make your mission. Like, I get it. And he literally looks at me and says two things that I will never forget it in my life. They're on my plaque. They're my boy put it on my plaque because he heard it from outside the room. This dude looks at me and goes, Bennett, you're a cat. You'll land on your feet. And then
it sounds like we might be talking about the same person.
And then, you never met this dude.
No? Okay.
No. And then this dude looks at me and says, what did he say? He was like, worry about what's most important right now at this moment. And that's making mission. And I was like, did you not just hear the fact that like I might not be able to take care of my family and my children and my house and my dog and my car?
Which is your personal mission to make.
Yeah, like what? And he's literally like, bro, we'll take care of it. We got you. And I'm like, and now mind you, the same thing that just happened to me happened to my other boy, who's a reservist. Literally, dude, all the way up until the last day that he could be in the Marine Corps, they finally approved his package. And this dude is where he got 3 kids, he got a family, he's doing all this shit. And it's literally like the question's never, and you're spot on about human factors, is that nobody, I'm not going to say nobody cares about it because there are some really, really great people out there who really do, like the Gunny Mabrys of the world, like the Mass Sergeant Victor Velez's of the world. Like,
him too. He's solid.
Like, they really give a shit about human factors. But like you said, that's a perfect example is that the recruiting command, not as a whole, but a lot of people just forget about it. And I would love to at some point have like a recruiting as commanding officer on here, just because I would love to understand their stressors. I would love to understand their, like, what they go through on a daily, because I'm not sitting, I can't imagine what you go through when you're on conference calls with colonels and generals and freaking shit. Like, I can't imagine.
I'm sure it's just as stressful.
You know what I mean? But that's the thing, though, is that, like, you're the one who's supposed to be stopping these things from the top down and making sure that you actually ask people. And like you said, the human factors, it literally became this thing where like on Friday night, you'd be like, all right, I messed this for like the whole month. So let me just knock it out. And it's like, no, you should be out there talking to your Marines about these factors daily. And it should matter to you and the command and everybody. And like, just like you were talking about Sergeant Major Allen, I love that guy. I thought he was there was times where I was like, but I think as a person, he genuinely did care.
If you knew him as a person, great guy.
Yeah.
I think he was in a very conflicted position between the RI that was there at the time and the CO that was there at the time. And they were pushing him into a box that he didn't belong in, and he was a good dude though. Yeah. Same thing with Victor Velez. And it's a good thing that you brought him up. I'll tell you, man, I only knew him for 6 months, right? Because he was fairly new when I was on my way out. But what I will tell you about that dude is I can tell you where his wife or his ex-wife actually, where she lives, how many kids he has, how he sees his kids, from our conversations about being human versus what we got, how much you make a mission. And that was just a peer-to-peer conversation, right? But the same factor, if I could communicate with the ones above, like Mike Diaz, right? Mike Diaz, still talk to him every once in a while, but I know how many kids he has. I know, his situations when I was there. He would just share them with you.
You know that he's a fucking human being and he's a person.
But like, what else is he? He's super fucking successful.
Yeah.
Because he put these things in play. Yeah, he likes to talk about his family and everything, but what he does understand, he understands that if you trust him, you'll follow him to the depths of hell. But if he fails at that, which he never does, because he keeps in contact with everybody. Every time I'm in the car with somebody, somebody's calling him. He's always texting, FaceTiming. Dude was on FaceTime all of the time. And I saw that, especially when I was new, and I was like, there's something to this. Like, he's just not this bubbly. It's because he genuinely cares about people.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw anyone be followed as hard as everyone followed Mike Diaz. So in my mind, I was like, I want to be that dude. So I spent more time with him. He'd come to the office. When I was a recruiter, I'd always volunteer. ARI's coming, everybody would be like, oh, I'm busy. I'd be like, who is it? I mean, either one of them were cool at the time, but I'd be like, I want to go. I want to talk to him. And we had a great time. Yeah. He never once bashed me, even in my worst times in the beginning, because he cared about like being a person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude.
So,
and that's the
human factors thing is just huge. It's so missed. It's so missed. And people are like, oh, huggy Philly. Bro, I'm not huggy and Philly, right? If you're trying to act tough with me, like, all right, I'm not going to win everything, but I'll tell you, I'm never going to let you put me down. I'll fight to death for that. But what I will do is be cool about it if we're cool. You know what I mean? And that's my recruiters and I, we're on that same page.
And that's what it is, man. Like, just kind of wrapping it all up. And I think the perfect example of, and the title of this episode is just going to be human factors, because that's the part that everybody misses.
Part 1, because I'm about to die.
Yeah.
So if it happens, part 2.
Yeah, but nah, man, like, because it's the truth, man. People forget about that. So if you are a brand new staff in COIC, take that into consideration and look at it and look at who you've been as a Marine, as a leader. Look at the leaders that you've had before, and remind yourself that recruiting duty is so consumed in numbers and so many other things that people forget about the human factors and what's at play in people's lives outside of the office. And a lot of times, we'll talk about this in human factors too, but a lot of times it's alcoholism, and people just they don't talk in the office about shit because they can't. So now they go home and they just face a bottle of Jack to the face. I had this dude, he got out of the Marine Corps, but we found out from his wife that he would go home from the office every night, sit in his chair with a bottle of Jack and his pistol in his right hand. And he would just sit there and just drink and then go to work tomorrow and then go to work tomorrow. He ended up getting, I think he voluntarily separated, but yeah, man. So I definitely appreciate you coming out. I know your phone's about to die, so we'll cap this off. Human factors 1, but I appreciate you, man, and I look forward to episode number 2.
All right, I'll see. We'll talk, man. Thank you.
All right, brother.